Hello again, you extraordinary subscribers. Welcome back, everybody, to the Hemingway Land YouTube channel. So, it's one of these weeks, guys, where I looked at the completed video, the rough cut, if you will, and it was clocking in at a little over 20 minutes, and I decided that's way too long for anybody to listen to me talk. So, in the interest of keeping these things brief, we'll say brief, 10 minutes is brief, the first half of the video, right, tell a delightful, no doubt fascinating, compelling story, and do special thanks. That'll be tabled until next week or something. And right now we're just going to hop into the new properties this week because there's a lot to get to, guys, a lot to get to. And I don't want to bore you any more than I normally do with me talking. So let's do it, guys. Let's get to this week's new properties. All right, people, we are back with the listing I promised you 2 weeks ago, another forested mountain property outside Cloudcroft, which I believe is ideal for a hunting cabin. More on that in a bit. Whatever the case, this roughly half-acre listing, priced at $18,000 you see here, is the one I wanted to debut with last week's properties for reasons that will become readily apparent in mere moments. Let's go to the map. So, at this point, we all know the geography of this region, so I won't belabor that. Whatever the case, here's Cloudcroft, here's Ski Cloudcroft, and here's Highway 82. And as we continue to travel west, here's the property we listed last week, and here is the property we're listing this week. Ah, you see? See why I wanted to do these together? Additionally, guys, these two lots are a nice yin and yang. They're a nice contrast to one another, for as you will recall, last week's property was in a more upscale, we'll use the word upscale subdivision, with an HOA that had a lot of rules, well-maintained roads, the property had no trees, so on and so forth. This one this week is basically the exact opposite. So, first off, this property is located in the Quarus Acres subdivision, which is a small community you see here. This is what the entrance coming in off the 82 looks like. See what I mean? A little different than the fancy archway from last week. Whatever the case, this road is named Hollywood Boulevard for some reason, and it is the main artery through the sub with all the other side roads branching off of it. Now, I'm pointing this out because the subject property is located at the back end of the sub where Hollywood ends. Basically, you take it all the way up to Squirrel Lane, bang a left, and you make your way to the property. That said, this sub has a significant rise to it, so you're not just driving to the back of the sub, you're driving to its northernmost point. And I mention that because while the roads look like this at the entrance, as you travel through the sub, they get a little rougher still, and then on Squirrel it becomes a narrow dirt path. Now this is all my way of saying that in the absence of owning a tank, you'll want to use a larger truck or off-road capable vehicle when scouting the land. Whatever the case, once we finally get to the property, we find a number of nice features. First off, despite the roads I just showed you, there are actually some nice home sites out here. This one is located along Squirrel as you make your way to the subject property. And I pointed out not only because it has residential power, but because this was built up here, it gives you some sense that yes, even at this elevation, the slope of the land is not so pronounced as to make it unbuildable. Is that a word? I don't know. But the point is, guys, our photographer did describe the slope as gradual. So I was pleasantly surprised. Additionally, guys, those residential power lines extend to the subject parcel, as you can see in this photo. Now, the rest of the photos of the property don't offer much additional insight. It's a forested lot. It's got some boundary markers in place. That's the most you're going to get out of these. And what I do want to point out, however, and why I think this is an ideal hunting property is as follows. Here are some photos of fencing. Where is the fence? Along the western boundary of the property. And if we go to the parcel map, you will see that the subject property is in the northwest corner of the Quarus Acres subdivision and backs up to all the land you see here. This property is roughly 190 acres of privately owned land, hence the fence. Additionally, though, if we look just a little bit north of the property, you will see that the subdivision backs up to the Lincoln National Forest here. Now, of course, there's one privately owned lot between the property and the forest, but no one's using it, so I doubt anyone will know or care if you walk across it a few times a year. Additionally, guys, just to stay on the parcel map a bit longer, if you look at the entire sub, you will notice that most of the lots out here are chopped up into small 0.15, 0.15 acre lots. This one, however, is a replat of 3 of those lots and totals a little less than ½ acre, which, however small it may seem, will actually give you way more land than most people have in this subdivision. Additionally, because of the location, a lot of extra privacy. Finally, guys, it's worth noting that there's no HOA out here, not a big surprise, and that there are only very, very, very minimal covenants and restrictions in this sub. One notable covenant that I do want to take a moment to point out is minimum square footage for structures in this area that can be as low as 480 square feet. And so again, I return to my point about this being a good property for a hunting cabin. Next up this week, people, we return to Socorro County for another one of these super rare 5-acre lots in the Rio Grande Estate subdivision. So in case you missed the first one we had out here and absolutely hated the second one, you may want to check out this, our third and probably final 5-acre lot in this region. And for the record, for all of you thinking that we've bought way too many of these for me to keep defining them as super rare, I will, once again, direct your attention to the plat map of the region, where you will see that the vast majority of lots out here are all 1 acre, except guys, a small handful in units 31, 32, and 33, which are all mostly 5 acres. Point being, get off my case, language Nazis. Now, as we have discussed in countless videos, but what I will repeat again here, is that the major benefit, the major appeal to owning land in Socorro County is that this is a region without formal zoning. There is no countywide zoning ordinance in Socorro, and in this subdivision, Rio Grande Estates, there is no HOA, no annual dues, and no covenants or restrictions. And over the years, we have found many buyers who enjoy this sort of thing because it allows them to camp an RV for indiscriminate periods of time. It allows them to develop unconventional structures, difficult to get permitted elsewhere, such as tiny homes, yurts, shipping containers, and whatever weird trend people are jumping on this year. That's the kind of thing you'll be able to do out here without getting hassled by the man. Now, as we go to the photos of the subject property, you will see that like many of the lots we have listed out here, this one is flat, so it should be easy to build or park on. You'll see that it doesn't have any utilities at the lot line or really anywhere close, so you'll want to bring your solar panels or gas power generator, and that the roads, as you get closer to the land, get a little harder to distinguish, and thus, you'll probably want to drive out here in a vehicle that can handle this, such as a larger truck. Now, what differentiates this property from a lot that we've listed out here in the past, however, is that it has fencing along both its southern and eastern boundaries. And if we go to the parcel map, you will see that that is because the neighbor owns all this land over here, and thus, fencing off his property has helped to better define the boundaries on this one. Additionally, guys, it should be noted that because the northern boundary is the access road, it means that your boundaries have been so well defined that it will probably eliminate the need for a survey and thus will save you some money. Now, quick thing I want to talk about here, guys. So, over the years, we have bought and sold well over 300 lots in this region. I have never, ever seen a gate or an obstruction of any kind out here until now. So, in the interest of full disclosure, I want to talk a little bit about what our photographer discovered when he went out to shoot this property. So, this is a gate that you will find to some small degree barring access to the property. And I say, quote, to some small degree, because it seems our photographer didn't have much difficulty getting around it. Whatever the case, if we go back to the parcel map, you will see that that gate is situated here, along Jacinto Street, roughly 1,500 feet from the subject property. And if it were effectively barring access, it would also be blocking the people who own these 6 lots here. Now, let's be clear, people. This road right here is a legal access road. It is the way these landowners would legally access their properties. That is their right. If you buy this property, it is your right. No one can legally bar you from accessing your land. That said, sometimes people do kooky things that aren't legal and that we have to deal with. So, how does a gate like this come to exist, you ask? Well, the reality is when you have someone who lives in a rural location like this, if they're there for any period of time, 5 years, 10 years, whatever, and they don't see anyone else out there, at a certain point, they might put up a gate. And when no one tells them they can't, and then years go by and no one is telling them they shouldn't have, they don't think twice about it. Now, if I had to guess who put up the gate, I would wager it's the person who owns this land over here. He's got a couple adjacent parcels, looks like he's living out here, so he's probably the party responsible. Now, I don't know this guy. Our photographer didn't run into him. We have no idea what he's like. Maybe, guys, maybe he's a delightful gentleman who, if you met him and said, hey, I just bought the land next to you, can we do something about the gate? He'd be glad to help. Maybe he'd take it down, maybe he'd give you a key, Maybe he's just finally happy to have a neighbor and he'll be very agreeable. Or maybe, guys, maybe he's a real jerk and he's not going to move that gate if Jesus Christ himself comes down and asks nicely. I have no idea. And in the interest of full disclosure, if this is a property you're looking at seriously, before you spend $8,000 on it, it probably merits a drive out there to maybe size the guy up. Do I want to even live this close to a neighbor in the first place? Or maybe, I'll just buy Hemingway's other 5-acre property instead. Who knows? What I will say, though, guys, is this. Earlier when I said the gate bars access, quote, to some small degree, what I meant by that is this. According to our photographer, it was very easy to get around. Yes, technically it obstructs the road, but if you drive 20 feet past it, you can circle around it and get out to the land. Does that mean you're technically crossing someone else's property? This one may be right here? Yes. But being as they don't seem to be around much, you can probably do it. You could probably get away with it for the time being while you figure out the situation with the gate. Whatever the case, I am going through all this trouble to explain this because much as a 5-acre property is exceptional out here, so is any sort of obstruction. And while I think the property has a lot of desirable qualities, this obviously is not one of them. And so I want to make you guys aware. That said, it's pretty country out here, it's a lot more land than any of your neighbors will have, and you're going to be able to develop it with far greater independence than you would find pretty much anywhere else in the state. So, in my estimation, guys, gate or no gate, it is still very much worth checking out. With all that said, going live on the website next week, question mark. Big giant question mark. Yes, people, it's another one of these weeks where the stuff that's been photographed isn't out of escrow yet, and the stuff that's out of escrow hasn't been photographed. And thus, we are currently scrambling to figure out what we will debut 7 days from now. That said, guys, no doubt when the day comes, no doubt, guys, no doubt, it's going to be fantastic. It's going to be another piece of land you're going to fall in love with, guys, I'm sure. So, tune in next week to learn more, and more importantly, guys, to fall in love. Until such time, have a great 7 days, and we will see you back here in next week's video.